Welcome to the show. We are going to talk today about Rishabh Pant versus Sanju Samson. Now, both are young players, precocious talent, and budding stars of Indian cricket. But somewhere along the line, Rishabh seems to be lagging behind. There are weight issues, and the way within coach he has been treated of late by the team management has left a few things to be desired. I'm joined by our sports editor, Sandeep Mishra. He is sitting in Himachal enjoying the weather, and while we are slogging away in the smog of Haryana, but it'll do. Sandeep, welcome to the show. My first point is I need a reaction from you on the Rishabh Pant factor. I have a few very interesting, juicy quotes about him. I'll come to that later. But what is your overall sense of Rishabh? Is it the fact that here is a guy who, more than a wicketkeeper, was/is a splendid batsman? He has won games. He can turn a match around. He does some audacious hitting, aggressive, fearless. All those nice adjectives have been used for him, but still he seems to be lagging behind. He's not being picked for the limited overs format in Australia, and he's been picked very strangely in the test side, where obviously Riddhiman Saha will be the main keeper. What is your overall sense?
I think, if you really look at the stats when he came on, I think he was doing extremely well. But much before him, I think Sanju Samson should have got that nod. We all know that a lot of former cricketers, which also include international cricketers, had said that Sanju has the right attitude, he has the right temperament, he has the skills, and he has the talent that he can really reach a level where he can become a very classy batsman and a wicket keeper. I think somewhere the moment these two things come together, the classy batsman and the good wicket keeper, the first choice is always a good wicket keeper. I think that's where Pant came in. But if you really look at over the last 2 years since Pant came into the limelight, became part of the test team, became part of the ODI team, the T20 team, did well in the IPL, I think somewhere along the line, things do go wrong for a lot of players. They are unable to take the attention. And that is something that the IPL normally does. I mean, there's so much of world attention, and that's where probably Rishabh lost out. The reasons are still unknown in terms of the media. When I say unknown, it's part of the media that we really haven't delved into what's really wrong, not with Rishabh Pant, but wrong around him. But if you ask me a simple question, Samson is my choice simply because I love the man's temperament, the way he bats, the straight bat that he comes with. Of course, wicket keeping skills are something that the more you do at a particular higher level, and not just the IPL, you'll of course improve.
I will come to a very interesting quote from Tom Moody on Rishabh Pant, and this has only got to do with his form, with the way he looks in this IPL. And Tom Moody says, and I quote him, I think one of the things that has derailed Pant's IPL to this point is being how he arrived at the IPL. I think from my understanding, his condition was not in a place that it needed to be in. I respect the fact that everyone has been in lockdown and there has been some challenges around that. But to me, there is no excuse. Absolutely no excuse. We are not playing in the 80s and the 70s. The Indian team has one of the role models when it comes to preparation, Virat Kohli. So there is absolutely no excuse. I think that in a way details you, not only physically, but mentally. Then he gets injured. I wonder why he gets injured, because the condition is not where it needs to be. I think you need to help that player regain his focus and learn from the mistakes. Now, this is what Tom Moody said. So, Sandeep, for me, the operative phrase is when he says that I think his condition was not in a place that needed to be in. So, he's being very polite. He is basically implying that Rishabh Pant is not match fit, and neither is his weight allowing him to move around in a much better way than he could have. So, he needs to have shed that weight. But for a player so young, isn't it strange that these guys have a weight problem already, and shouldn't he have been better prepared, like Tom Moody says, for the IPL? Because it is a very major tournament. You are playing with international players. You have eyes of the world on you, and of course, the large part of the selection for Team India also depends on his performance.
I think the question needs to be given more to the Indian cricket team and the management around it. But simply because the IPL is for a couple of months, but the player has to be match fit, has to be test match fit, has to be ODI and T20 fit at a national level. And that's where I think the management needs to come in. They need to monitor it. And if somebody hasn't been monitoring Rishabh Pant, that actually puts a huge, huge question mark on the team management itself. But bringing in Rishabh, making him play the IPL, or probably thinking that he's probably going to get better as the IPL goes through, I think that's more of a pipe dream. And it also, I think somewhere we need to look at the narrative that is built around a player. I think there's this huge narrative that's built around Rishabh Pant that he is the man for the future. Fine. But if the man of the future is not doing anything in the present, and the present holds good for almost every player, then shouldn't there be more chances and more opportunities for younger wicket keepers to come through? Why are we just focusing on Rishabh Pant only, knowing very well that the attitude may not be right, and the reason why he's not fit has yet to be told to everybody? And I'm just going back to a quote of Sunil Gavaskar a week back. There is no transparency in the Indian cricket team or in the Indian cricket setup. Maybe this is just part of it.
When it comes to Rishabh, and I want to linger a bit on Rishabh Pant before talking about Sanju, while I know very well that you've already made your choice where Sanju is concerned, and so have quite a few of the former creating greats. But coming to Rishabh, purely as a fan of the game, I thoroughly enjoyed the way he used to bat. Of course, there were the goof ups as a wicket keeper, basically collecting the ball in front of the stumps, making a few other mistakes as a wicket keeper. Then the mantle of Dhoni being put on him. Dhoni took quite a bit of time as a wicket keeper to really flower, as you have said, and some of the other wicket keeping greats have said. And you grow into a job. But specifically where Rishabh Pant is concerned, his audacious batting, that fearlessness, and the strange part of that team management, that when he started failing, both Ravi Shastri as coach and Virat Kohli as captain went on saying that don't put him under pressure, give him time. There's too much of media pressure. Stop asking questions about him. Now that is a point I personally don't agree, because when you're playing for Team India, pressure is part of the job and performance is part of the job. So whether you are 19 or you are 25, that doesn't matter. So you should be good enough to perform. Everybody is watching you, so you have to take the heat. So how do you analyze the comments from, say, Ravi Shastri and the skipper, and the way Rishabh Pant was initially cotton-wooled and then there is brutal rejection?
I know a lot of people will not like the parallels that I'm coming up with, but if you see the last 3-4 years, and if you actually see very closely, watch what happened after Virat became captain and what happens after Ravi Shastri becomes the coach, the Indian political setup and the Indian cricket team are like parallels. You cannot ask questions, because then, who are you to ask questions? Virat is the intelligent, the greatest batsman in the world at the moment of time. Ravi Shastri, the successful coach. These are people who don't like questions, but understandable. They may have their compulsions. They may have, okay, I'm not going to answer this and I'm going to answer this. But at the same time, I think the moment a coach and a captain come in and start supporting a player, which is fine. But when the support goes beyond a particular line, then there is a narrative. Then there's a narrative being built around the player. And that narrative not only harms the player that they're building around, but it also harms a lot of others who are trying to force that door open. I mean, you need to look at the other players. I mean, what's the harm? I mean, and even at this moment of time, I mean, you can see Rishabh on the field. You can see the when he's training. You look at the weight he's put on. Has anybody among Virat or Ravi come out in the open and said that this is not done? I mean, this boy, after at the end of this particular IPL, is going to go on a tour to Australia. What are we showing up there? And if he fails, then who's going to take the blame? Nobody wants to put their hands up for this. But at the same time, I think it's a pleasure watching so many good players. It's amazing to watch the IPL because of the amount of talent on display, and that is the sole reason why a particular player, if he's not fit, needs to step away and give chances more to players who are fit and who are willing to go the longer distance in terms of Test cricket or ODI or T20.
Okay, one quick point here, that coach Ravi Shastri, when it came to Rohit Sharma, made a very interesting statement, and I read it a couple of times to understand what he's trying to say. So he referred to Rohit Sharma's hamstring injury or leg injury, as the case may be, because those specific facts are still not out in the open. And then he said that it would be best if Rohit Sharma takes his time before he makes himself available for the Australia tour, because when I played for India and I was supposed to go to Australia, I was not 100% fit, yet I went there and it ruined my career. He obviously had a knee problem there, and he referred to that, and he said that I could have played for India another 4 to 5 years if I had stayed back, but I did not, because that greed to play is paramount. But then comes the clincher. So Ravi then says that I am not part of the team selection, and obviously I'm not part of the medical team, so I'm just going by reports. It is for the management, larger management, to decide on Rohit. So when it comes to Rishabh, knowing the fact that he has put on weight, knowing the fact that he is just recovered from a hamstring injury which kept him out of a few matches in the IPL, how was that call made?
I think the Rishabh thing, the whole question and the mystery around it is probably something that Ravi and Virat need to answer, and they should be answering, because if things go wrong, then it becomes a huge. It's almost it's a big issue that they're going to carry with them. But when it comes to Rohit, I think if you really look at most of the batsmen, the ones who are coming through, the one reason why a lot of people are also asking as to why Rohit wasn't going there and why Rohit should force himself back into the team. Even I have read a few comments where a few players have said that Rohit needs to go there because he's going to recover. But Rohit also will be afraid. A lot of players are in the Indian team are now afraid because there's so much of talent coming through that 100 here and there, and you might lose your place. And that goes for almost virtually the 11 in the Indian team, except for the bowlers and all, because I think you see more of batsmen coming through rather than the bowlers. But the narrative between Rishabh and Rohit, I think, has to do now also. I'll just take you to a little, the other point also is there's so much of player management that happens from agents and everything that there is enormous pressure, not only from the BCCI or from the captain or from the coach. I think there is enormous pressure from the player managers also in terms of sponsorship deals and all of that. And that, uh, as an example, we can always look at the English Premier League. I mean, though it's vastly different, the whole world is completely different, but the amount of pressure that is put by player managers in the EPL for their players to be selected, irrespective of injuries or not, I think the same thing is being played out in India, though we haven't seen it in terms of the media coverage that a player management should get. But I think there is something that also gives a little bit of fire to the story, is that it's just not the pressure from the coach or captain or the BCCI, it's also from player management firms.
Interesting. Now, Kevin Peterson makes a comment on Sanju Samson, and he also makes a comparison with Rishabh Pant, and both are interesting. So I'll quickly run you through those two quotes. So Peterson says, KP says, when I see Sanju Samson, I see completely different. The dedication, the commitment he put into turning up for this year's IPL, that really impressed me. That actually got him ahead of Rishabh Pant for me, just purely from diet base, fitness base, and from dedication. He said, I want to go out there and do everything I can to play cricket for India. He's got runs after runs. He failed a couple of times, but that dedication is what you need to get into international cricket. So what we are drawing from KP's comments is basically that whether it is diet, whether it is fitness, whether it is performance, on all three fronts, Sanju Samson is ahead of Rishabh Pant.
He is. I mean, there is no doubt about it. I mean, you see the way Rishabh bats when he comes out, and you see the way Samson bats. And when I say bat, I'm just not looking at the technical part. I'm just looking at the way their attitude is on the pitch, the hunger for runs, the hunger to excel. And for Samson, it's very simple. He wants the Indian team, and that is what you need to be looking at. There are a lot of players out there. There's enormous talent out there. Ambati Raidu is one player in question. I mean, he's been given enough opportunities. I do agree he should have been part of the last World Cup. but he should be scoring more and more and more. I mean, that's what Samson is trying to do. I mean, I can understand that a couple of seasons may have gone bad, but then that goes for every player. This season, you can see the way he's standing on the pitch. You can see that determination in him. You can see that he wants to get into the team. So what's wrong? I mean, in terms of giving him those opportunities at that level and for a longer period of time. If Virat and Ravi are wanting Rishabh Pant, great. At the same time, I think they should also understand that there are 4 or 5 wicket keepers out there who probably at this moment are better than Rishabh. So why not give your hand in support to them? And for Virat, there is nothing to lose. He is at this moment of time the best batsman in the world across the 3 formats. I think he should be setting up a system where his support not only gives confidence but also gives the right choice to the BCCI, to the cricket board, to the Indian national team that this player should be there because he's a player in terms of the long term. The longevity of this player is enormous. At least for Samson, I can say that.
Okay, before we wind up this interesting chat, the last point would be that how does Team India treat Rishabh Pant? Because clearly, on all counts, Sanju Samson has gone ahead, whether it is runs in the IPL, whether it is being fit, on the diet factor, dedication, as KP spoke about. What should Team India do with Rishabh Pant? Give him more chances, back him more, or let him go and play domestic cricket and try to figure things out for himself?
Domestic cricket is a must, I mean, there are a lot of players. I mean, you look at the last 10 years, how many of the top guys have really played domestic cricket? I think domestic cricket, in so many ways, should be actually the mark from where you come into the national team. You perform in the domestic, you should be given an opportunity, and Rishabh should go back to it. The rehabilitation is not just in the gym, the rehabilitation is on those domestic pitches where you need to score 100, a double hundred, or a triple hundred consistently so that the selectors once again look at you. These are the same selectors who looked at you and brought you into the national team. Go back, let those selectors again have a look at you that you're match fit, you're mentally fit, and especially in this form of the cricket that is being played in and out, day in and day out across the formats. I think fitness is probably the biggest thing that a cricketer has, and Virat cannot be a bigger example than that.
Okay, that's all for now, and it's very clear from our chat that when it comes to Rishabh Pant versus Sanju Samson, currently Sanju is leagues ahead, whether if you talk about fitness, whether it's the run scoring ability, the dedication to the sport. And unfortunately, Rishabh Pant seems to be out of sync. He's put on too much weight. He needs to lose that. He's a young man. I'm sure he'll be able to figure that out. But like Sandeep said, he needs to go back to playing domestic cricket because that would be the best way that he rehabilitates himself and comes back with renewed vigor and pushes and competes for a place in Team India.
Thank you.